All right, so let's jump into week 10. So week 10 at the moment, in the first version of this course, is Service Cloud. It covers 11% of the exam, and it has only two rather vague topics. So describe the capabilities of case management, case assignment rules and queues. At a high level, most people will understand that pretty easily. It's just a little bit more of the application. The next exam, the Service Cloud exam, will go into things like entitlements or SLAs, service level agreements. So, and a whole heap of the complex processes. We don't need to touch on that at the moment. Given a scenario, identify how to automate case management, for example, support process, case auto response rules, and case escalation. So straight away there, you know that there's some standard terminology. So an auto response, it's the same as when you would log a lead and you get an automatic autoresponder to thank you for contacting us. We will get back to you. It's just for a case. So this is where a lot of the later lessons that we have build on the content of the previous exams. You've done the hard work, you understand the terminology. A lot of it becomes pretty logical and just extends. So I'll just quickly run through. So these are the meeting topics. A couple of these are probably overkill at the moment, because you can see here, case record types, not in there, hierarchy, parent case. We'll touch on the topics, but we just won't dig into them too deeply, so that you'll understand the concepts, but you won't really need to go into too much detail. I've put a module and a project in the for the lesson. If you go through that, get some hands-on with case, you'll understand. So coming back to what is a case, the way that I explain it to people and they relate to it is when you've got a problem with your phone or your internet, you call up your ISP or your phone provider and they say, oh, okay, this is the problem. They go through it, they sort it out, and they give you an ID, a support number, a reference so that you can call back. It's very much that. It's like a problem or a complaint or something that you want to formally manage. So the difference between a case and something like a to-do is like an activity. You can assign an activity to somebody. That is like the way that I explain it is that's a post-it note. That's something that is not formally tracked. It's, I would appreciate if you do this. It's just handing it over to somebody, letting them know, like a notification. A case is more formal. So a case will have an owner, a case will have multiple stages, a case will care about the outcome. So just the same way as when you have a sales process, you'll have a case process, you'll work it through. You might have lots of different types of cases. So you might have a fault. You might raise a case for a fault. You might raise a case for a complaint against a person or an individual or something like that. If something goes wrong, it could be even something along the lines of wrong address. You need to formally action it. It's logged as a case. So a case assignment rule, when you're working on that theory of if you're creating a case and you have lots of different cases, you might have one department that deals with complaints. You'll have another department that deals with faults. So how do you automatically route that case based on the information that you have through to somebody that deals with it? And then just the same way as you have queues for leads, you will have queues for cases. So it might not, that team, you might not actually want it to be allocated to an individual, you'll allocate it to a queue, and the next available operator will take that case and triage it or action it or whatever it needs to happen. So, you know, that at a high level, and this is part of the reason why I said we're building on the terminology. This is going to be one of the quicker recordings, because once you see it, you've already been exposed to the Salesforce way of thinking. It's building upon that terminology and that knowledge, just using a slightly different perspective. So what we won't touch on, because it's not required, is case teams. So in the event that you have you might have multiple people working on a case. So you won't want multiple people to act like the owner. So just the same way as somebody can own an opportunity, you can have opportunity teams, you can have you can have case teams as well. So you have multiple people who own that record and have therefore visibility of everything on it and can make the full changes. That comes in really handy at times, because you don't need to keep transferring it. You can just add an extra person on and they get full visibility of it. So and one of the things that I didn't add into the topic and links that I just wanted to highlight is that there is a Service Cloud Specialist badge. As you can see, I haven't done all of the prerequisites, so it's not open for me. This wasn't available when I did the Service Cloud exam, but it does cover off a lot of the key requirements. Very, very handy. I do plan on doing it when I get time. So probably after I retire, I'll get this done. So that was supposed to be humor. I am recording, and it's noted that no one cared, no one laughed, no one pretended to enjoy it. So
I pretended, Cal.
Oh, thank you, God.
I got you, man.
Thank you. So what I'm doing is just jumping back into the org that we were using before. We were using the sales app. Let's just flick over to service and just have a quick look. Just as a reminder, it's those three sections of Salesforce. So the first section, you've got your marketing, you bring somebody in, then you have that sales process, they become an existing customer. So that transition from when they are a customer. Service is quite often looking around people that are existing customers and making sure that they're happy. Of course, that doesn't mean that you forget about your public. So when you can do just the same way as we showed a web to lead form, you can do a web to case form. So on your website, you can say log a complaint, and that can come straight through as a case and be dealt with by whoever's dealing with complaints, or routed to another team. So first thing we notice, Service Cloud doesn't look any different other than the items up the top here. Contacts with the same, accounts is the same, contacts is the same, reports, dashboards. We've got a couple of additional items, but cases we'll jump straight into, and we'll just jump. You can see here, there's a case number, status, priority. Let's jump into one of them. And this is just one of those stock standard records that Salesforce produces as a test item. You can see that this format's a little bit different than the sales process. So there's a lot more information on the left-hand side, which is like conversational. Rather than facts, it's a lot more of this happened, then the next call would be logged. It's kind of like case notes in some environments, but it's really about trying to track where the customer is at, so that if you jump on a call and a customer calls up and says, I'm talking about case number 1002. How do you get that operator as quickly up to speed about what has happened so that the person on the other end of the line doesn't have to talk about? So let's just flick over to related. You can see that there's a couple of standard things. You know, you've got your tasks, your events, history, case comments. All of that seems kind of normal and logical activities that you would log. So once you have a case, you might assign a investigation to somebody, or you need them to follow up you think that you've sorted it out, but you want to follow it up in a week. You can create new tasks and events for those kinds of things. Let's just jump quickly over to the details on the right hand side. You can see that there's a status and priority. So just the same way as when a lead can be hot or cold, you can add priorities. You want to know whether this has been finished or not, so that you've got your statuses there. Case origin. So again, the same way as a lead, where did it come from? Type. You will want to know who you need to route it to. And within that, you might have different problem statements, things like that. Products and everything. You can see here that so your service level agreement, whether it's that violation, these are all kind of customizable. But really, it's just one of those. If you've got a complaint and you want to put all the information in it, you want to work through the different processes, and we will be just touching on just the same ways that there was a sales path on how to take a lead, how to manage that, how to make sure that they were contacted and then they were either converted or not. We can do the same thing with cases. So depending on what type of case it is, you might have a set process and you'll have that path. That's not on here by default, so we've got to set that up. So that's one of the things that we cover off. Looking at the drop down, you can have a look at sharing hierarchy. So again, this is about the security model. How much access are you giving to people? And then you have a look at the case hierarchy. So in this event, you might have an initial case that's logged. I've got a problem with my phone. Okay, then I will keep adding different cases to, I might need something rectified at switch or something like that. So multiple reportable actions or cases might lead to the resolution of an overarching problem. It's really just to say, track the dependencies. You can understand that if I call up and I say, I have a problem with my phone, they might have to send somebody out so that they'll create a case for that. Then they might have to do something at the pit, so they might create another case for that. They might need to have a network outage. So all of these things will be tracked with different SLAs and therefore should be different cases. So let's just go back. And so that's just a quick overview of the case record. What I want to also highlight is if you click on your waffle, changing, and when I much prefer the service console. So cases, the way that I just showed you is the stock standard way. This is the service console, and what I do like a lot more is this split view where you can have multiple cases and you can switch between them because they're on different tabs up the top. So you can use this drop down, you can jump into different areas, and instead of dealing with one case at a time, you can juggle multiple cases. So this is the service console. You can see the case details, and there's a lot. It's a little bit more of that kind of overview. The other thing to note is knowledge base. So the knowledge product you can set up a knowledge base so that people can self-serve their problems. They can do a search. But the beauty of the way that Salesforce has it set up, you can publish the information to internal and external users. So you might have articles that you want to publish so that people on the website can search and say, I don't know how to plug in my iPhone, and it will have instructions. But then you can use those same instructions internally, and you will be able to have an operator who's received a phone call jump straight into the knowledge and search the same knowledge base. So you can publish that out to a community. So if it's a portal and people want to use the online method rather than phoning, you can publish that same content to multiple locations. Comes in really handy, really powerful when you use it right. It is, you need to check your licenses to see whether you have the authoring tools and things like that. So it's a feature that you want to check your licenses on. Some of the minor licenses weren't coming with it. So we should jump into, that's another thing that I want to highlight. So in the setup, you see service setup. So that's a new item that I don't think we've covered in this training. So if we jump in here, what you'll be able to see is up on your left-hand side, service setup home. It's this guided assistant to how to configure Service Cloud. So you can see customize, add your users, customize your case status, basics for your training, support emails, Lightning community. So that communities is exactly what I was saying before about if you wanted to for self-service. So how do you set it up for an online portal where people can search their own problems? You see that I've got 1 out of 2 knowledge and 1 out of 2 licenses consumed in those areas. Not much storage. Yeah. So this is really just one of those playgrounds. So yeah, and from that you can see that they're the standard things that most people would do for the setup. Let's quickly just jump into the assistant. Click. Okay, it's not. Maybe this is the assistant. All right, let's just jump. So let's have a look at the customized case status. So you can see here that by adding a new one, and I'm not that creative at the moment, but you can see, I'll just move new one up. You can set the default. You can work out when something is closed. As you saw before with that status, I didn't see that closed option. So you could have multiple closed with successful resolution, or closed and have some other one of we weren't able to find a resolution, but we don't want to keep this case open or something like that. And then if we jump into so I've just over on the quick search, you've got that email to case, which we're all familiar. Let's just jump into it. This is going to look a lot like the web to lead that So this is email to case. You had email to Salesforce before. So if somebody writes an email and says, I'm having problems with that, and you have a support email address, it will go log straight into Salesforce with as much information as it can map. There are instructions there. Let's just, and you can see you have to enable it as notify case owners. So as soon as it gets allocated, it will notify. And again, routing and things like that. It's all in there. I'll let you go and have a look at it. It's another one of those things that I think it's in the hands-on materials. It's well worth doing at least once before your exam, just so that you can see it. If you've done the web to lead form or the email to, I think the email to lead, yeah. So yeah, it's worth setting up. What else were we looking at? So web to case, this is what I was thinking of before, which was when you set up your website, you can generate what are the fields that you want added, what is the URL, then you put the reCAPTCHA in and you can generate the HTML that you put straight on your website. Let's close that. Case assignment rules. So if this is just a standard one, let's go into that and see. So you can see here that if it's just going through basically a big long if then else, almost like case statements, but it will just basically say this is if it's in the US and the SLA level that they've got is that they've got the support package of gold or platinum, and the account is a customer account, then assign it to me, but I might want to change it to somebody else. Oh, I click that. You can reorder them and things like that. So that this is how you route. You assign the cases. So it's not tricky once you see it. You can imagine that if you've got faults in one state versus another state, it will be routed to one person, or complaints, it will be the complaints department will get it, and depending on whether it's high severity or depending on the state or whatever criteria you want, it will get routed differently. So it's, and what you can also see is on the right hand side, email. So sometimes it will just get automatically routed to people and they'll look at the cases that they own. But a lot of the time you'll want to send them an email. Obviously it depends on the organization because you don't want to flood people. Let's go back to auto response. So as we are aware, it's really easy to set up auto response. When this opens, it's not one set up. No, I don't need to do that. So you can see there that if I wanted to set up another rule, we've got all the information off the contact, the account, all of those fields, and really easy to set up with, yeah, so you'll get hands-on experience. It'll all make sense. I'm skimming over this because I think that a lot of people would understand. Case comment triggers. you would just think about if it's keywords and things like that, that you want it to do something else. That's where you can do that. Case merge, very much what it says. Merging cases, they might be duplicates. You do it with the leads. Makes sense that you do it with cases. And I'm harping on that topic a little bit of you're treating cases a lot like you are treating leads. It's very similar behavior, and that's where, because it is a big platform, having a predictable way of dealing with things, you can understand that leads, opportunities, cases, they have a lot of similarities. And case team roles, so if I go into case team roles, what do I want to do? Actually, what we will do is, what am I thinking? Actually, no. No, I won't set that up. That would be more complicated. Not necessary. So what I've just quickly run through, escalation rules, I don't think we've run through. Oh, have we? Yes, we have. It's like the, let's just, no, I'm now clicking too much. So we went through this. So case escalation rules. We haven't gone through the queues, but I think we went through that last time. And as Harrison's topic with process automation went through queues as well. The support process is something that we need to set up, and I'll just quickly show you the support settings. So there are a bunch of configuration items that you have in the background that you can, and again, I'll let everybody go through this at their own speed, but these are very much the organization defaults. So have a look at, so yeah, question to case and experience sites. Again, if you don't have an experience cloud, doesn't make sense, but this does cater for everybody. Let's jump into that support process, and I don't believe that the default org has it set up. Let's go into new. So there's, so we'll just go through with the defaults. We can save that. We now have a support process, and it's, let me just jump back, and because you can see here that they've made it easy to say you can associate the case record type, the support process with the case record type. So I've just clicked on that link. We don't have the record type set up, but what you would do is service cloud setup. I might even just edit the page. I don't think it's going to recognize that it's set up properly. So yeah, it hasn't come up with the items. And it would just basically be because that record type isn't set up and this org isn't quite ready. So path settings, new path. I'm just going to celebrations is always an interesting one when you're dealing with cases. Yay, somebody's kind of not that unhappy with us anymore. All right, so jumping back to that record type, where is it? So I'm stuffing it up. What am I doing? I've stuffed it. I probably should have set it up first. Needed to refresh, I think. But it's really just setting that path up at the top. I'm not gonna. The topics for the exam didn't go into knowledge. We'll set up more time. I think this is handy as well, just to point out. There's just some tips. Salesforce has got a lot better with their help documentation, so you can really set up in-page guidance and a number of other things to help users navigate through the system. So from an internal stakeholder perspective, you should be able to do and buzzwords here, case deflection. You get people to sort their own cases out before they log them. So instead of logging them, you want to get users to have the knowledge articles and be able to search for themselves so that they don't create cases because they don't know where to look. Give them all the tools so that you can reduce the workload. That, I believe, is the very, very short version of Service Cloud. So we've covered off case assignment rules and queues, and it says the capabilities of you. I don't believe that there's a lot in the detail. I think it's more at the concept level. Given a scenario, identify how to automate case management. So the support process, we've actually just run through at a high level. Again, if you're thinking of a phone scenario, when your phone's not working, it might be an issue with your bank or something like that. Having a real world scenario and just thinking it through, a lot of those just make sense. If an SLA, if you're expecting, if the bank tells you that they'll get back to you within 24 hours and they don't, it might be because the person is sick. It might be because of some reason outside of their control. So how do you automate that in the system so that you get notified and you can do something about it? It might go to their manager. It might go to second level technical support. It might, we as an organization, we always want to try and let the lowest level of support manage the tasks that they are able to do, and then escalate it up because you have less and less of those highly skilled technical resources. So you want to be able to prioritize their time as importantly as possible. Does anybody have any questions before I turn off the recording? All right, I'm going to stop it here. We're happy to continue. I don't think that there's much more in this area. I think that if you get some hands-on experience, very much like the sales process, they have, probably about 7 questions. And if you understand case management, if you've used it a little bit, you should be fine. If you've used it, Salesforce in your employment on a day-to-day basis, if you've been through the testing process of a deployment, you should be pretty comfortable, I think, with this area. And again, sometimes you have Sales Cloud or Marketing Cloud or Service Cloud specific projects. and that might not include all of them. Service Cloud, sometimes people buy Sales Cloud without those Service Cloud licenses. In that case, you have basic case management. You don't have the ability for things like those entitlements and the SLAs to be baked into your configuration. So I'm going to stop it now, and we can have a chat.